Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2. In today's video I wanted to go over some weapons that I think you guys should craft immediately that I don't see very many people talking about, and it's going to be extremely good for the raid. There's a lot of things that are very good for the raid, and having a lot of different weapons available in your arsenal for swapping around dependent on circumstance and the scenario in the raid could be extremely beneficial. There's a lot of weapons that you can craft fairly inexpensively too that I think are going to be really good, so let's just get right into it. I plan to keep the video as short as possible, and YouTube usually hates that, so if you like the video please make sure to drop a like as that helps support me a ton. It's been pretty difficult getting into the Destiny YouTube scene. And also, if you guys are interested in some builds that are going to be really good for the raid, I just uploaded a Hunter Stasis one that's going to be extremely good, as well as my Void Hunter one, which will be fantastic for the raid, and I also have a Warlock build that'll be good for it as well. Alright, so let's just get right into weapons. Unfortunately, I'm going to have this thing on the bottom of my screen the entire video that's going to tell me to upgrade the Enigma. It's extremely annoying. The reason that I haven't is because I don't think glaives are all that good, but also I don't want to spend that much material to upgrade this when I'm trying to craft all these other weapons for the raid that comes out tomorrow. So sorry if that's annoying. It annoys the crap out of me too, but we just got to deal with it. Real quick, if you don't know which weapons you have the patterns for, or you don't know how to get the patterns for weapons, you can just go into Triumphs, Patterns and Catalysts, and then you can just check right here. So as you can see, I don't have the Come to Pass weapon pattern, and in order to actually get this, I need to complete the Deep Sight Resonance extraction on this weapon twice in order to unlock it. Obviously, there's a pretty good amount of weapons that you can craft right now. I'm not going to be going over all of them, but I'm going to be going over the ones that I think are going to be particularly good for the raid and that you can just log on, craft real quick, and then make sure that you have for the raid. So let's get started. The main reason that I wanted to make this video in the first place was almost just to cover two guns by themselves, but I figured I may as well just lump all of the other things that are worth having as well into the video. The main reason that I wanted to make it in the first place was because I was thinking about the loadout that I was using, and obviously I'm going to be going in with Funnel Web because this thing is insane, but I could very easily see there being scenarios where Funnel Web being an SMG is not going to have enough range to cover a lot of the different situations. There might be enemies from far away, or there might be enemies that I want to have a little bit of distance from because I don't want to get killed, or overall the ranges might be lacking. So I started looking at some different Void weapons so that I could still take advantage of Font of Might because I'm going to be on Void Night Stalker, and also take advantage of volatile rounds, which is pretty much the main reason that Funnel Web is good to begin with, right? I didn't have very many in my vault, but I did see that Pointed Inquiry is a crafted weapon that is also a scout rifle, so we're going to get that range from it. Of course, it is a high impact frame, which is not preferable, but because it's Void and because it's going to have the volatile rounds and the Font of Might, regardless of the archetype, this thing will be better than a kinetic scout would ever be, simply just because it's almost doing double damage with having volatile flow and all those other things. So this is almost the main reason that I wanted to make this video. This thing can actually shred when you have it set up right, and it actually has some really interesting perks that I wanted to talk about, which I think that you guys should have available too. And you don't even have to level up the weapon all that much. You could literally just craft it by default with one of the good perks. So starting off, let's take a look at it. One of the main perks that I think that you guys should look into is adaptive munitions. This pretty much makes it to where the weapon is going to adapt its damage output regardless of what shield is fighting, so it's pretty much just immediately going to break shields. Historically, there hasn't been match game in raids, but if there is a scenario where you need somebody to break a lot of shields, and there's like arc shields or something, it's very unlikely that you have somebody playing arc, or even using an arc weapon. The majority of people are going to want to use Void, and this is going to allow you to still take advantage of Void with volatile rounds while taking out every shield. Alternatively, Demolitionist is a fairly good perk as well for getting your grenade back, but I don't think it's as good as something like Dragonfly, which is going to help this thing out a lot with Ad Clear. However, since it does have the volatile rounds, the Ad Clear won't be all that bad. In terms of the damaging perks, there's not that many great options, and there's really just Harmony and Focus Fury. Harmony is not great in a raid scenario because you're not going to get a lot of kills with whatever your other weapon is. Focus Fury is probably the go-to here, but it's only going to give you a little bit of damage. But if you pair that with something like 4 times a charm, which I think is probably the go-to perk regardless, this is going to make it to where you have higher uptime on Focus Fury. In terms of the enhanced perks, I have no idea what the difference is between the normal perk and enhanced for a lot of these. Of course I do for some of them, but there just isn't concrete numbers because people don't want to spend this much material just to test something that may give you a little bit of extra stat, like 5 stability or something. So I think generally I would not recommend using the enhanced perks unless it's something very specific that you know is a huge benefit to you. But what's really interesting is that you can literally just craft this. This is like a level 1 one that I haven't upgraded at all. You can put on adaptive munitions and like firmly planted by default. Genesis is not going to pair well with this because it's not going to count as matching the enemy shield when you break a shield. that is like solar, for example, while you're using the void weapon. In terms of the other stuff that you want to put on here, I would recommend a barrel that's going to focus on handling speed, so corkscrew rifling is pretty good for that. And then you could either go appended mag or flared mag well. Appended mag is going to give you the increased mag size, which will be really good when you use 4 times a charm, and then flared mag well is always good to get really fast reload speed. I don't think that extended mag is worth it because it's going to make the reload speed really slow, and it's only going to give you an extra 1 bullet rather than appended mag. Another fantastic option that I'm sure a lot of you guys love using, which pretty much serves a similar purpose to the pointed inquiry, is the under your skin. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of bows, but I do think that this thing is extremely strong. I don't have the pattern, unfortunately, in the game, so we're going to take a look at light GG and see which rolls it can get. So one of the main rolls that's really good is explosive head, particularly in a raid scenario, because it's just going to, by default, make it do extra damage, and you don't have to worry about getting kills to make it do extra damage, and it's also just a pretty good perk in general because it reduces the fall off. Another really good perk is Dragonfly to give it some AoE, but this is going to require some kills, and you're going to get a lot of AoE in the form of your volatile rounds anyways. Something that I'm sure you guys have seen is successful warm-up, but this is going to require kills, and you already are going to have pretty fast draw time if you're using Archer's Tempo. But just like the pointed inquiry, you can get adaptive munitions on this thing, which will be very good as well, for the reasons that I stated earlier. Alternatively, Perpetual Motion is fairly good for the handling speed, Unrelenting is good for the survivability, Tunnel Vision I don't think would be really worth using. I'd probably, if I were to use a bow, I'd probably put on Archer's Tempo and Explosive Head, or I'd have another one with Archer's Tempo Adaptive Munitions to be ready for those shields. For the other perks, I haven't used bows an insane amount, so I'm not 100% sure on which ones I'd recommend using. It's a little bit of his preference, but I imagine you want to lean towards accuracy and making your draw time faster. Another weapon that I recommend everybody craft right now is a Palmyra B. This thing doesn't take very long to level up. Personally, I think that the best roll is what I have on mine, which is auto-loading holster and explosive light with impact casing and quick launch to give you the increased projectile speed. The reason that I picked this rather than lasting impression is because generally I don't really like lasting impression in the way that it feels in game. Explosive light is like negligible damage difference, but also it's just really unreliable expecting lasting impression to always kill things. Let's say that there's an overload champion, you shoot him with your overload SMG, you swap to your rocket, you shoot a lasting impression shot, and by the time that your lasting impression shot actually does damage, the overload isn't there anymore, and then the guy's just kind of full heal. But if you have explosive light, you just swap to it, boom, shoot, and the guy's dead, right? Also, auto-loading is really good, but if you really like reloading, I guess you could do that. Similarly to Palmyra is Red Herring. The only reason I'd use Red Herring is because it is void, but I don't think that it's as good as Palmyra, but getting the extra Font of Might buff, particularly really good if you're playing a void subclass, and if you're able to consistently get that, then that's going to give it an edge over Palmyra. But the rolls that it can get just simply aren't as good. But let's take a look. So obviously we can get impact casing, and we could probably get confined launch again, or quick launch, whatever I was using. And then we could get something like field prep for that extra reload speed, or you could go tracking module since it isn't a precision frame to help with the tracking. And then we could get something like Frenzy for damage, but that's obviously not as good. And then we can get Lasting Impression, so you can get a really good damage roll in the form of Field Prep Lasting Impression. And Enhanced Field Prep is actually going to give it an extra mag in the reserves, which is very, very good. However, like I was saying, I don't really like Lasting Impression, but I'm probably going to farm this out and have this available if there is a boss where I need an insane amount of damage. This is probably what I'm going to use, simply just because it is void. The last weapon that I want to look at that I'd highly recommend looking into is Thoughtless. I unfortunately don't have the pattern here, but we're going to take a look at what it can roll on Light GG. This thing has a ton of good perk combinations, and honestly, it requires a little bit of testing. I saw Sweatcicle testing this and like racking his brain around which mag to use and which perks to use and like trying to do math and all that. It's kind of a pain. Ideally, I would probably recommend Overflow Firing Line or Rapid Hit Firing Line, because I think these are honestly going to be some of the most consistent for doing a lot of boss damage, but something like Rapid Hit Focus Fury could be really good because it's going to give about the same damage buff as Firing Line would, and you're going to get a lot of ammo back. Paired with the Focus Fury, you'll have pretty high uptime on that. And then using something like Tac Mag or Pen and Mag to increase the magazine count overall is going to be particularly synergistic with this, but a lot of these rolls are really good. The main reason that it's good is simply just because you can craft it and you can get something like Firing Line, Rapid Hit, or Overflow pretty easily, and overall having a sniper in your kinetic slot is going to be good because a lot of us are using void weapons, right? So then you could use your heavy slot for an exotic if you pair this with like your funnel web or whatever, or you could even use an exotic in your energy slot in the form of Ruinous Effigy or Wave Splitter or something else that is void. That's pretty much gonna be it for the video. The main purpose of the video was to just show you guys that not only is pointed inquiry pretty good, but with adaptive munitions, that's an extremely good perk. Under Your Skin is a really good alternative to Funnel Web, and Thoughtless is pretty good, and I'd highly recommend you guys pretty much immediately getting a rocket launcher if you don't already have a good one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe for videos similar to this one. All that helps me out a ton. Like I said, it's been pretty difficult getting into the Destiny YouTube scene, but I'm just going to keep doing my best with making videos. And if you're interested, make sure to check out my other build videos. Alright, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.